Love, love, until I feel the breath of thy spirit flowing in me.
Hello, welcome to Spirit of Life. My name is Geraldine Lee, your host, and our guest is Adam Garvey. Welcome, Adam.
Thank you, Geraldine. Thank you.
It's great to have you.
Thanks for having me.
And you're a real estate owner, and
yes.
and tell me a little bit about your background. You've got a family.
Yes. I run a real estate business in Camberwell, residential real estate, and keeps me busy. I have a wife, Tamara, and 3 children.
Oh, lovely.
So they're 6, 5. Had quite a few birthdays recently. 6, 5, and 2.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. So
And
it's busy.
and you've had you're a Catholic. Is that you've been a
Yes.
Catholic all your life?
No,
Great.
brought up a Catholic. Still a Catholic.
And did your parents help you in your faith? Is that how you've stayed a Catholic most of your life?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I went to went right through the Catholic school system, primary school, through to secondary school. There weren't too many Catholics at university, but I went to Deakin University here in Burwood, close by, from where we're filming. I had a fairly straightforward Catholic upbringing.
Yes.
So I went to church every Sunday and did all the sacraments, and I guess you'd call it a fairly traditional, what I thought was normal Catholic upbringing.
Yeah, and what do you think is a good, Christian marriage today? How does that look like for you?
Good Christian marriage. It's an interesting question. It's I think in the past you had your concept of the stoic family, the father, the mother, the children, traditional marriage with the kids. But I think these days in society there's a lot of changing of roles between parents, and a lot more mothers these days are working, and some fathers looking after kids, and people have different work hours and so on. So, but I think the fundamental values of a Christian marriage haven't changed, and they shouldn't change. And that's really your primary responsibility as a father is to, and as a Christian, your responsibility is to bring up your children and your family. That's your primary responsibility. And that responsibility includes bringing up your children in a Christian faith, whether it's Catholic, but bringing up your children in a Christian faith where they know God, and that's something that they're aware of from a young age.
So do you see the role of parents as teachers? And especially with sex education today, there's many programs where they're pushing for philosophies of same-sex marriage, and in schools, and the Safe Schools project and these sort of things. Do you see parents as the primary and the family to educate the children?
I think parents should be the primary educators of things such as sexuality. I've heard a lot about these safe school programs. As far as I know, they've been implemented in a number of the government schools. So I think what we may potentially have is, because I know in a lot of the independent and Catholic schools, whether they're primary or secondary, these programs aren't necessarily running. So, but yeah, I have real concerns with programs that that lead a child to question who they are and what their sexuality is at such a young age. So yeah, I have serious concerns about it, and I know you can see in the media that a lot of some of the news stories, you have parents at state schools who express serious concerns about the program and its content. And from what I know, some of that content's not easily accessible by parents, so they don't know what their children are being taught. So yeah, I'll be protecting my children from those government-run programs.
And do you think there's a biasness towards one side of thinking about sexuality and family and what is a family?
Well, I mean, the family unit is fundamentally it's the foundation of our society, essentially. So that's what the family unit is. That's where the strength of the family unit lies. I do think that some of these programs which are targeting young children, I think some of these programs 10, 20 years ago, the people who were suggesting implementing them would be, their position would be seriously questioned in society as being a very unusual position to take. Just getting back to your question, I think, I do think the family is under attack from certain sectors of society, and there's a lot of pressures on families and fathers to teach traditional values, and because they're not coming from educators, so it has to come from the parents.
Yeah. I saw an interesting video on a young woman who was brought up by two lesbians, and she said that the media brings it out as all very positive, but she, in her story, she said that she did long for a father, and she felt she didn't get that full parenting role from her two mothers. Even though she thought they were good, she just felt there was a lacking for her. Yeah,
well, absolutely. There's different. There's going to be a different relationship between a daughter and a father and a daughter and a mother. There's going to be a different dynamic and style and type relationship between a son and a father and a son and a mother. That's just natural. So absolutely. If there's two parents of the same gender, they're not going to experience that same dynamic and that same relationship as if there was a mother and a father, and that's just a fact.
Yeah, it's been interesting talking about the subject. We're going to take a break now.
Great.
You've been watching Spirit of Life. Stay with us, and we'll be back after the break. Welcome back to Spirit of Life. My name is Geraldine Lee, your host, and our guest is Adam Garvey. Welcome back, Adam.
Thank you again.
We were talking about families and things like same-sex relationships and parenting. What do you think about the legalizing of same-sex marriage, which is a very hot topic at the moment in Australia, or Victoria, I should say?
Yeah, very hot topic. Yeah, absolutely. A lot of newspaper space has been used up on this topic or debate. So, I mean, the nature of a gay relationship, so to speak, has been something that's been, as far as modern society is concerned, they've enjoyed a lot of or most of, if not all, of the rights in a secular society that anybody has, as far as access to government services and acknowledgement of their relationship from a civil perspective. But to take that into the realm of marriage is that's a huge step, and it'll be interesting to see what the outcome of this vote, this non-compulsory postal vote is. But I think a large percentage of the population are probably, I think you'll find, will probably be fairly conservative when it comes to marriage, because it is a traditional institution, and the main issue I have with it is once the right of marriage becomes something that can be undertaken between a man and a man, or a woman and a woman, as opposed to exclusively that of a man and a woman. And we'll touch on this earlier. The issue I have with that is that that children who are being brought up in a society where marriage is something that can be entered into by people of the same sex, man and man or woman and woman, and that's then put on the same level as a heterosexual relationship, your traditional marriage relationship, which has been in place for centuries. And it's only been the last few years that there's been this big push. So I have concerns that, one of my main concerns is children who have been brought up in a society where it's a legal right and marriage is on the same level and plane as that of a normal heterosexual marriage. What I'm concerned about is when they're being brought up, that's what they're taught. So there's no real distinction between traditional family and a gay marriage or male and male, female and female marriage. So that's my real concern, is because moving forward from that change, children be brought up in that environment, and that'll be the norm.
Yeah, I mean, from my own upbringing, I've seen a need for a mother and father, and I know my mother, gave me a lot of that nurturing and that, the soft touch and the compassion, and it was good that my dad had the side of, a discipline and also protection. There was the, I can remember, during, going through puberty and then through going out with guys, just knowing that my dad was there to protect me, that he was checking out the men that I was going out with, helped me feel protected. So there was and the courage, I suppose, him encouraging me. So I felt that both of them had different roles to play in my upbringing. Yeah,
sure, absolutely.
Yeah, and do you find it quite challenging as a professional, running a business, marriage, and is that quite a big responsibility for you?
Yeah, it is. But I think any father who's working full time with a family these days, can feel those pressures. So it's about I think it's more about a balance these days. I know when I grew up, I didn't see my father a lot when I was younger because he was working very, very long hours. But that's just what had to be done. But I'm very mindful. I probably don't work as many hours as I did when I was in my 20s and I wasn't married, because I'm mindful that with your children, time goes very quickly, and I'm very deliberate about spending time with my kids. Whether I have to finish early or because working 6 days a week in my job, I make sure that I can take some time off and spend time with my kids and go to a school play or
have quality time with them.
Yeah, take time off to spend time with my boy because the time goes quickly.
Yes, no, it's great that you're conscious of that because some people can become, especially when they're younger, workaholics.
Yeah, well, you hear so many stories of fathers who wish they could have their time back where they worked hard, provided for the family, but they just missed that time. With the kids.
And they had good intention. They thought if they work hard, then they'll catch up later. But the reality is, children need that time of real support.
Absolutely,
isn't it?
I agree.
And what are your views on pornography? Today, is that something that's quite common among men or women? What do you view that?
I think with the concern with pornography is, in this modern society, people I think have access to it in a way that they've never had previously. So, as a kid growing up, someone might buy a Playboy from news agents. But these days, pornography is so easily accessible, on iPhones or iPads, and it's just one of those things that's, that's a real worry I have as a parent, and young people generally have access to pornography so easily, and I think the content of pornography these days is, it's quite disturbing. I think there's probably, I'm not an expert in this area, but I think exposure to pornography is not healthy for the individual at all.
Yeah, I hear that it can cause a false idea of your future partner if you see them as a sex object rather than
it's not a real,
rather holistic person.
That's right. Yeah, it's not real life. So people, that's right. I agree.
And I know a couple of my friends it affected their marriage because the figures and the pictures could be so controlled that and you can't control humans and that's where it disturbs the mind. Yeah.
Oh, I agree. I think if people are whether they're single or in a marriage and they're watching pornography, it's unhealthy. Absolutely,
Yeah, no, it's an interesting subject. We'll need to go for a break now.
Yep, great.
You've been watching Spirit of Life. Stay with us, and we'll be back after the break. Hello, welcome back to Spirit of Life. My name is Geraldine Lee, your host, and our guest is Adam Garvey. Welcome back, Adam.
Thank you.
So we were talking earlier on about pornography and the effect that it can have on people. When you were growing up, were you exposed to pornography? Like, as a young man growing up, is there a lot of temptation?
Yeah, there is. I mean, growing up, you're exposed to film and music videos and so on. But these days, with the advent of technology, as I mentioned earlier, people have access to pornography that's far in excess of what there was traditionally. So yeah, I think it's a big concern in society, and I don't think it's addressed enough in society. Yeah, I mean, personally, growing up, the temptation of pornography was always there. And with the advent of technology, you could access it on the internet. So, yeah, I think most men do have the temptation to get on the internet and look up pornography. So, yeah, I think it is a temptation that's always there, but it's something that I don't think it's harmless, like some people say it is. So I think a lot more education needs to go into the effects of pornography on young men. Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I've heard some research that if guys get turned on by certain pictures, they then find it hard to get turned on from their partners because they've got into a habit of the stimulation in their brain that and also there's so many types of sex, that varieties, and almost to the point of sometimes of with animals and all sorts. I mean, that's the other extreme. But yeah, and it's I know that. I've heard of people where it's affected their marriage, where the husbands prefer to go on pornography rather than have normal, natural sex with their wife.
Yep.
And it leads on to things like prostitution. But of course, so how do you think that? What would you do for a family growing up to help young people for your children? How do you prevent them from going on to pornography?
Yeah, well, my children are still fairly young, but it's going to be an education issue around the use of technology. I think that's going to be the main driver. I mean, you're going to have kids who are socialising with other children, and they've got an iPad or they've got access to a computer, and that's where it's accessed from. Like a lot of things these days, you can access it through the internet. So, I mean, parental supervision these days, you talk to parents and they're really concerned about that. That children can access pornography through the internet. So, yeah, there's a lot more concerns for parents these days. So, because even if they're in the safety of their home, they could be accessing something online that's not appropriate.
Yes.
And, even if it's on YouTube or they're watching a movie or something that's not appropriate, they've got access to that content.
Yes.
So, yeah, it's a real worry, and my children they're not at that stage yet, but I think schools also have a big role to play in that, educating children about safe use of computers and tablets, and it's a real concern for parents. So whether they're using software to restrict access, but it's a
there's things like Net Nanny and things like that.
I believe so. I haven't.
And I know some of my friends, they only allow their children to be on the internet when they're in the family room or where.
Absolutely, you can't leave your child alone with an internet device with unrestricted access, basically.
Yeah, it's a challenge because parents, they get tired and they get, sometimes I see at different, even churches and family centers where people just leave their 2-year-old with a tablet and iPad, and they're already getting so used to using it as a stimulation for their brain,
Yes.
So it's quite challenging for families.
I think, Geraldine, the schools have to they have a role to play in sex education around pornography and the negative impact it can have on young people. So I think the schools need to get involved in there. The churches need to get more involved and be more on top of it. And then you've also got video games and gaming. That's also a lot of kids get immersed in that environment, which is kind of a escape from reality. And I knew as a kid growing up, I played a lot of video games, but these days you've got access to it in the car, mobile, wherever you go. So kids, that's also another issue, is video games and gaming.
Yes.
I think kids escaping from reality through that.
Yeah, I read something how the brain gets wired to find a lot of things boring if they don't get stimulated by their brain through multimedia. And I know one thing that my friend does, who's a youth leader, when they have dinner, they all put their mobiles in the middle because they kind of got this idea we should respect the body, respect the person next to us. Because I remember going to a dinner where everyone was on their mobile taking photos of the food but hardly talking to each other. And they were texting their friends instead of talking to the people who are next to them.
Common practice, That's almost the norm now in society, is, play on your phone while you're having lunch or somebody or dinner.
I fall into that, and friends of mine who are not so much on social media say, we don't feel respected. You're texting people, and I'm saying, I've got to show my group this and that, and I could sort of get where they were coming from because I wasn't respecting their presence. I was, talking to the people who are not there more than the people who were there, on social media.
Yeah, no, I think it's something we all have to be mindful of.
Yes, and what do you think about, like families who are growing up, like do you have this view of, have you heard of theology of the body, which says about seeing the person more than seeing a part of their body? Do you think that pornography tends to focus on parts of the body more than the whole of the body or the whole of the human being?
Oh, it does, yeah. Well, pornography focuses on the flesh. And that's a focus of pornography. So theology of the body, the churches need to, and the schools need to be, teach more about the sanctity of the body and respect for the body, and the dangers of pornography, absolutely. Yeah.
No, it's great to hear about, your view, and also, do you think that as a family man that what we could do is talk to you further the next time for the next show, because if I bring in another topic, it's going to get a hot topic. But we'd love to have you back for another program.
Okay, wonderful.
And so I wish you well, and goodbye, and God bless you, and bless your work.
Thank you, Geraldine. Thank you.
You've been watching Spirit of Life. Thank you very much for watching. See you next week. Goodbye, and God bless you.
Bring it to birth and blow where you will. Blow, blow, blow till I be but breath of the Spirit.